Well, good afternoon and welcome to what I hope is going to be the first of many Foto Friday episodes on our channel. As we mentioned on Tuesday, we're hoping to sort of publish a couple of different types of videos on our channel going forward in 2020, and one of them regarding photography. And also, for those of you who have jumped across from my photography channel, thanks for following along. Now, for the observant amongst you, you may realise that I'm in Ballintoy again, which is where we recorded the Tiny Tuesdays episode from. Tuesday just passed. Now, it is a different day, but as I mentioned in that video, this place has got so much potential for photography that I thought I would kick things off on these Foto Fridays by coming back down here again. Now, as you can probably see, it's not as windy as it was earlier in the week, but the waves are still something that I've got to be very aware of. And as if on call, I get a little bit of a spray on the back of the head. Now, for me, one of the first things that I like to do when I get into a location is not get the camera out. Now, that may be kind of counterintuitive as a photographer. Go to a location, and even if it's a location that you have been to multiple times before, just spend a bit of time wandering around, getting your eye attuned, because I think we can all become very guilty once we get the camera out, and especially once we get the camera under the tripod, that we don't move too far. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time now just wandering around the area and reattuning my eye to this location. Let's go take a look. So I have found something that potentially will work. Now, a couple of things that are kind of to my advantage here. One, when the sun kind of comes out, Sheep Island, as it is known in the distance, really does kind of take on some lovely colours. Wonderful thing about sort of being on the north sort of coast of Northern Ireland, even though it is sort of 1:30 in the afternoon, around this time of year, the sort of winter months, most of the day you're still going to get sort of relatively nice light, and it's being diffused a little bit by those clouds. Because I'm shooting with a mid telephoto lens, it's the 18-135, and I'm out at about 35mm. I'm actually able to stay a relatively safe distance away from the waves. Now, one or two are coming up and a bit of sea spray, but I'm pretty safe up here. But I'm still able to kind of zoom in and have the burst of the waves on that first rock as the immediate foreground. If I was to use a wide angle, such as the 10-20, which is on 10-24, which is on the video camera here, it'd be very difficult to not include any of this foreground. And at the moment, I don't think the foreground is bringing anything to the story. I think there's a big wave coming. I think we're still safe enough. As you can see, a portrait orientation. I've got the 18-135 on, and I've got a couple of filters on as well. I've got the Format High-Tech 4-stop, my favourite filter for using at the coast, and I've also got a little 3-stop soft edge grad, and that's really only when the sun is on those on Sheep Island, just to sort of help me balance out that exposure. So one of the things I also like to encourage is, before you put those filters on, really try to lock in your composition, as in the image that you're trying to take. I think it can be a little bit too easy just to slap on filters and just start snapping away, which may get you something, but I prefer personally to work on that composition before I even consider putting those filters on. And with that 4-stop filter on, along with the polarizer, I'm getting about a 1.3 second exposure, and that's really all I'm interested in. I'm not interested in super long exposure smoothing out the sea. Now, the other thing you might want to do at this point is to fire off a couple of test exposures, and firing off test exposures including when the waves are actually over the rock. If you think about it, as those waves break over the rock, the scene will get naturally lighter as that foam comes in. So the last thing you want to do is fire off a test shot whenever there's no waves on that rock. So fire off a couple of test shots, make sure you've got your exposure locked in, and then it's a case of really waiting for the light, and with a cable release, waiting for the right moment. And that's what we'll talk about now. Now, in regards to timing, there's probably no right answer, each to their own. But me personally, if we take a look at this little video clip of the waves breaking over the rocks, I think there's probably 3 areas or 3 timings that you consider shooting the image. 1, just as the wave is about to hit the rock. 2, when the wave is first breaking over the rock. And 3, when it's starting to recede. Now for me personally, it's when that wave is receding from the rock, because you get a little bit of that rock's texture coming through, and you also get some lovely patterns in the waves as they're receding. But as I said, each to their own. What I don't think works is that huge first impact of the wave. Maybe you'd think differently, but as I say, each to their own. For me personally, it's just when that wave is receding, and I kind of use the cable release, and that just allows me to kind of get the timing correct. You could just use the 2-second timer, but then it starts when you're working at the coast using the 2-second timer, it starts to become much more of a hit and miss scenario. I'm going to carry on shooting here and see whether we can get some light on Sheep Island, and then we'll pick up another scene in a few moments. So I've actually been down at the little beach area now for about an hour and nothing really doing. It's one of those situations where it's really beautiful to watch, but I'm just not sure there's any images to be had, and that's mostly because we're just not getting any light on Sheep Island, which kind of is really detracting from the image. I'll throw up a couple of images at the end of this vlog showing you what it potentially can look like when we do get some light on that island. Scratch what I said last time, the sun is now hitting Sheep Island. I still don't think it would work down there too well, but what is working I think quite well. I love the combination of gold and blue, and that's what we're getting here. The golden sort of tones on Sheep Island and those deep aqua blues in the sea. So very similar setup to what I've been using before, still the 18-135 polarizer 4-stop ND filter, and I'm looking to get about 1/4 of a second exposure. I want to keep a little bit of the energy in that wave and just capture sort of some of that rolling movement. And again, using that shutter release, I'm just watching for those waves rolling past Sheep Island. I'm quite zoomed in, up at about 75 mil. So really it's just a little bit of the waves, a little bit of Sheep Island, and a little bit of that diffused cloud in the background. Those waves are getting a bit big now. So I had recorded an outrotor camera from the field. Sadly that got corrupted, so here I am doing it from the home office. Just before leaving I noticed that the moon had risen above Sheep Island, as you can see here, so that afforded a couple of other opportunities for images. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of Foto Fridays. As you can see, Ballintoy Harbour really is a wonderful location with multiple opportunities for seascape photography. I shall leave you with a couple of extra images from the day out, and we'll catch up again in the next episode. Bye bye.